From a hostage rescue that turned into a flaming pile of wreckage in the middle of the desert, to the raid that took out the most wanted man on Earth, but maybe should have happened a decade earlier. These are the most controversial special ops missions in U.S. history. And some of them are so jaw-dropping, you'll be asking yourself one question. Who on Earth signed off on this? Black Hawk Down, the Battle of Mogadishu, 1993. Let's start with the one you've probably seen the movie about, but the movie didn't show you everything. It's October 3rd, 1993. Somalia is a failed state. Warlord Mohammed Farah Aidid is starving his own people and ambushing UN aid convoys. So the US sends in Delta Force and Army Rangers to snatch two of his top lieutenants out of the middle of Mogadishu, in broad daylight, in one of the most hostile cities on Earth. The plan? Get in, grab the guys, be back in time for dinner. The whole thing was supposed to take 30 minutes. It took 18 hours. Two Black Hawk helicopters were shot down by RPGs. Soldiers rappelled into an ambush. The streets turned into a kill zone. And suddenly, Delta operators and Rangers found themselves pinned down overnight in the middle of a city where every alley had a gun pointed at them. By the time it was over, 18 Americans were dead and 73 were wounded. An estimated 300 to 1,000 Somali fighters and civilians were killed. And the image that the whole world saw? An American soldier's body being dragged through the streets. Sheesh. Now, to be fair, the mission technically succeeded. They captured the targets, but the political fallout was catastrophic. President Clinton pulled U.S. forces out of Somalia within months. Critics called it a strategic disaster. Others said the military was set up to fail, sent in with Black Hawks, but denied the armored vehicles they'd specifically requested. And the legacy of Mogadishu still haunts U.S. foreign policy to this day. Some historians argue Osama bin Laden watched the whole thing and concluded that America would cut and run when the body bags started coming home, which is a pretty dark setup for the next chapter. Tora Bora, 2001. Because just 2 months after 9/11, the U.S. had Osama bin Laden cornered, literally cornered, in a cave complex in the mountains of eastern Afghanistan called Tora Bora. December 2001. U.S. airstrikes have just obliterated the Taliban. Bin Laden and his fighters have retreated to this remote mountain fortress, and everyone knows he's there. CIA officers are on the ground. Afghan militias are moving in. Delta Force operators are calling in airstrikes. But here's the rub. There weren't enough boots on the ground. The U.S. leaned on Afghan militias to do most of the fighting, and those militias, not exactly reliable. Some of them were cutting side deals, letting fighters slip through their lines at night. And on sometime in December, Osama bin Laden walked out of Tora Bora and disappeared into Pakistan. Just like that. Delta Force commanders on the ground had begged for more troops. They wanted U.S. Rangers to seal the mountain passes. The request was denied. Why? Well, some argue that the Pentagon was already pivoting toward Iraq, and putting a massive U.S. force into Afghanistan didn't fit the plan. Sir, he was right there. Bin Laden wouldn't be found again for nearly a decade. The war in Afghanistan would grind on for 20 more years, and over 2,400 American service members would die in that conflict, all because the mountain passes weren't sealed when they should have been. Senate investigators later concluded that Tora Bora was a definitive intelligence failure and a missed opportunity that fundamentally altered the course of history. Yeah, not great. But if you think Tora Bora was a tragedy of bad decisions from the top, the next operation is a tragedy of bad luck at the bottom.